What's up guys, my name is Jack, you're watching JBTCG, and today we need to talk about the fragility in the Pokemon market. I know it may seem like it's unstoppable right now, but eventually we're gonna hit a peak, we're gonna hit a top, and we're gonna see a lot of both cards and sealed products kind of retrace or at least stop their growth. So what do I mean by fragility? Well, what I'm talking about is what would have to go wrong or what would have to happen for the Pokemon market to either enter like a bear market, or we see a big crash or a big exodus from the Pokemon hobby where a ton of people lose interest and just leave. And the thing is, we've seen so many people just rush into the hobby in the past year, and it seemed like it just happened overnight. The same thing can happen the other way, where all of these people rush out of the hobby in the span of just a couple months. So what do I think would actually have to go wrong for a ton of people, like say 30% of the people in the hobby, to just leave and just not care about Pokemon anymore? Well, honestly, I think all it would take is maybe 2 bad sets. And what I mean by bad is a set that just doesn't perform well in the market. Something that can't be scalped at this current time. A set that sits on shelves and doesn't have a good chase card that people really care about. I think 2 of those types of sets is what it would take for a lot of people to leave the hobby. And that isn't that hard to do. We've seen that happen many times in the past. And even when Pokemon seems completely unstoppable, we have seen a ton of people leave the hobby. Like in COVID, it seemed unstoppable. Vintage Pokemon seemed like the best investment of all time back then. But since then, most of those cards have fallen off in price. Even really famous cards like the base set Charizard or even the Dark Charizard from Team Rocket, both of those cards were at really high highs back in COVID and just fell off over the coming years, even though they're great and amazing cards that a lot of people really want. We know right now a lot of people are in the hobby or just came into the hobby and are really just enticed by hype. And this is evidenced by the amount of FOMO, where somebody talks about a card, somebody talks about a set, and we see it spike overnight. It's happening all across the hobby. Different cards are exploding, promos are going crazy for whatever reason. And if you're thinking about buying these promos in PSA 10 or things like that, this is not the time to buy. Like, I'm not gonna say you can't buy them. Go ahead, do whatever you want. I personally would not buy a single one of these cards that has been pumped. But back to my original point, 2 or 3 sets in a row that people just don't really care about. A lot of people are in the hobby because there's money in the hobby. A lot of people are buying into the hype, buying into the FOMO. They're spending tons of money. They're taking out like lines of credit for this hobby. And that is crazy, and it's not sustainable. And I think we all kind of know it's not sustainable, and eventually this bull market will come to an end. But I think what will really cause it is 2 or 3 sets that aren't that interesting or just don't have cards that people really want in them. That would make a lot of people leave, especially if they aren't scalpable sets where you can buy them at MSRP and then sell them on the secondary market immediately. That would take a lot of people out of the hobby, because there's a lot of people in this hobby that just are here to scalp out products and make money that way, where their entire shtick is sitting at Targets, sitting at Walmarts, following and air tagging the MJ Holdings people, that way they can know when the restocks are happening. Like, a lot of these people, as soon as you're not able to scalp the new sets, they're gonna leave the hobby. And I don't know what percentage of the people in the hobby are that group of people, but what I do know is that a lot of people only care about what is hyped. And that's evidenced by the promos and all of the cards that you see shoot up in price. People just follow the leader, basically. Many of the people that are in this hobby right now don't actually care about the Pokemon cards for the artwork. They care about them mostly because of the value and the status that they carry. If you have a rare Pokemon card right now, it's seen as a status symbol. People see that and they're like, oh wow, that's super cool. And it gives them a hit of dopamine because people are complimenting the cards that they have. But eventually, a lot of people are just gonna move on to other things as hype dies down. Now, when do I actually think this hype will die down and we'll see some sets that just sit on shelves? Well, I don't have an exact answer. I don't have an exact date that this is gonna happen in my mind, but what I do know is that in the next couple months, we're getting some insane sets. I don't think we're at the peak of the hype. I don't even think we're really close. And whether that's good news to you or bad news to you, that's just where I see we are currently at in the hobby. We have Phantasmal Flames coming, I think, in like November. That's definitely going to have Mega Gengar cards. I think we've already gotten a Haunter illustration rare leaked. I think also Meloetta, and I think those might come in the decks. I'm not exactly sure. But regardless, we're going to get a Mega Gengar EX. That's going to go crazy. We're going to get Mega Charizard EX. And then obviously the original Mega Evolution set that's coming up in September. That set also looks great. The hype for that is going to be, it's going to be huge. Then after Phantasmal Flames, I think it's like Emerald Storm. That name is definitely subject to change. I don't know the exact one. We're probably going to get Mega Rayquaza there. These are all super well-loved Pokemon. The hype is just going to get bigger and bigger with these sets. People love XY Era. People love Mega Evolution. Legend ZA, the new games are coming out. Tons of people are going to play those games and then want the cards. So I don't think we're at the top of the market yet. The next 6 months look crazy. And then in 2026, we're going to get the 30th anniversary, which I see a lot of people really hyping up. I think it's kind of overrated in people's minds. Now, maybe we get some crazy, amazing set and it blows up the hobby even bigger. But honestly, people don't really care about the anniversary sets as much as they are, I'd say, pretending to. Celebrations kind of sat on shelves. In my opinion, it's not that great of a set. The stamp, I think, is personally ugly. I know all of those cards are being pumped to the moon right now, but I don't think it was that good. Generations, that is an example of a great set, a great anniversary set. So if we get something like that, I could see it taking the hobby even higher, but I don't think the 30th anniversary is an absolute guarantee that the market completely explodes even further. Right now, it's kind of just all speculation. The Mega Evolution stuff is gonna go crazy. That we pretty much already know. The artwork already has been great from the cards that we've seen. It's probably gonna continue to be crazy as we keep going on. Now, after the 30th anniversary, this is where I think we'll see this tapering off. The Pokemon Company is gonna catch up on print runs, which means these products will be more accessible to more people. And then also we're gonna get new mainline games and a new base set. Now, we don't know exactly when this is gonna happen, but at the start of a new block, we get a base set with all of the new Pokemon. This is where I think there's a potential to see a big fall off in demand for Pokemon products. This is mainly because new Pokemon, people are generally not super receptive to, especially when you compare it to older Pokemon that people are already big fans of. Like, people are already big fans of Mega Evolution cards. But when you introduce a completely new region of Pokemon, where people don't actually have nostalgic feelings to them or already preconceived notions where they're like, oh, I love Lucario, I definitely want the new Mega Lucario SIR. These are completely new Pokemon, and I think we could see a huge fall off in demand with that. Now, I could be wrong, and the new era could be amazing, and people could love it even more, and the hobby could go even higher again. Obviously, there's a ton of possibilities, and there's a ton still up in the air. This is just where I think there's a big possibility for the market to decline. The next 6 months, I think the odds of a market crash or a market decline is really, really small. We've seen so much strength in the market, and a ton of people were saying this summer, we're going to see a huge crash in the summer because they were overhyping the fact that people leave the hobby in the summer. And people do, but still, there's still so much demand in the hobby. As we go through the fall and into the winter, I think it's only going to get stronger, but mid to early 2026, I could see a huge crash on the horizon. And what would a crash look like? That's something we also need to talk about because a lot of people don't really know what a crash would look like and what would be affected the most. So I'll go from the products that I think would be affected the most to the products that I think would be affected the least, or be like the most like recession-proof Pokemon products. So the products that I think would be most affected by a market crash are products that are new and are being printed while the crash is happening, because we're seeing an increase in supply of those products while demand is decreasing. So whatever newer sets that are coming out or sets that we're seeing big reprints for, we could see huge declines in demand for those sets. And also specifically other language products. So Chinese cards, Korean cards, Japanese cards even. These are usually the first things to go. And the reason we see other language cards and products kind of crash in price first is because English is the standard for an American Pokemon collector. Most American Pokemon collectors or Canadian Pokemon collectors aren't collecting Korean or Chinese cards. Now, some people are, and some people love collecting other language cards, but the majority of people just collect English. And the reason that a lot of people open and collect Japanese or Korean Pokemon is because it's a much cheaper alternative. You can get the illustration rares from 151 in Japanese for like $7 to $10. In English, they're gonna cost you between like $25 and $40. And that's basically the same for every single set. Most of the cards in Japanese are a fraction of the cost that they are in English. and Korean is the same way, and that is usually even cheaper than Japanese. So people use these other languages as a way to open Pokemon packs and collect Pokemon cards while being budget friendly. But as soon as the market declines, and these English Pokemon packs and English Pokemon cards are already affordable, people will just collect English cards instead of having to resort to these other languages. Now, secondly, the other type of thing that is going to be really impacted by a market crash or market decline is just going to be raw single cards. This is because there's already so much volatility in single cards that fluctuates with demand that as soon as demand exits the hobby and people start selling off their collections to recuperate some of their cost, there will be tons and tons of single cards on the market. The other reason is that over time, the amount of single cards that are on the market increases versus the amount of sealed product on the market decreases. And this is because obviously you open sealed product and that gives you single cards. So the amount of single cards for all of these sets is increasing while the amount of sealed product is decreasing. Now for graded cards, they're generally more crash proof compared to raw single cards just because they're a little bit more rare. PSA 10s are going to be more prestigious, but something like a Tag 9 or a CGC 8 or some random grading company that isn't a big name, those slabs likely won't perform very well. PSA, Beckett, even CGC, usually CGC like pristine slabs, those ones will probably be okay, but a random WAG slab is likely not going to perform very well. Now in terms of sealed product, the items that are likely the least crash proof are going to be random collection boxes, things like poster collections, kind of exactly what you normally think. Pokemon Center ETBs and booster boxes are the staple. They are the big dogs when it comes to Pokemon investing and just Pokemon sealed product in general. Also, as a last little tidbit, the best way to kind of know if a Pokemon crash might be incoming is when you stop seeing people be angry on the internet. You stop seeing people post videos about scalping and these vendors doing evil things and marking up products. When all of this discourse online starts to get quiet, that's when a crash might be coming. But right now there is no shortage of people angry on the internet, people very passionate about Pokemon, and that tells me that we aren't going to see a crash in the next couple months because people really care about Pokemon. They really want to get these sets. There's so much demand, but when that demand starts to fall off, people stop talking about it. You stop seeing new people make accounts on TikTok or YouTube posting their pack openings. That is when the market is probably coming to an end and we're going to see a little decline. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about this because I see a lot of people either fear-mongering crashes or just saying that the Pokemon bull market can't be stopped. I just wanted to bring a realistic take and drop some info on what a crash might look like, what I think would cause a crash, and what I think would be the most affected by a Pokemon crash. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Is there anything I missed? There probably is. But if you guys have any info, any wisdom, drop it in the comments. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching and stay safe out there.